I was sick of my dad's fake illnesses until I found his body in our basement. The man wearing my father's face is humming in the kitchen, and I don't think the floorboards above his shallow grave have creaked once. I'm writing this from the bathtub, with the shower curtain pulled and the door locked. It won't hold him, I know it won't. But my thumbs keep moving. I have to get this out. I feel like if I don't, I'll just disappear, and no one will ever know why. My name is Keon. I'm 24. Until about 6 weeks ago, I lived with my dad, Alaric. It wasn't the life I'd drawn up for myself, stuck in my childhood home in the middle of nowhere, working at a call center where the soul goes to die. But my mom was gone, and Alaric, he was fading. He'd been an iron worker, a man built of muscle and quiet oaths, but retirement had hit him like a slow-motion car crash. He'd just stopped. Most days, he was a fixture in his recliner, the TV murmuring, the silence in the house so thick you could taste the dust in it. It was grim, but it was our normal. The day everything changed, he decided to clear out the old root cellar. It's this stone-lined pit under the basement, accessible by a crumbling flight of steps. It hadn't been opened since my grandfather's time. He got this wild idea in his head that he was going to turn it into a workshop. I told him to leave it, that I'd help him on the weekend, but he just waved me off. A man's got to do something, he'd said, his voice rusty. He was down there all day. I called down a few times. First, I got a muffled, making progress. Later, just a grunt. The sun was setting when he finally came up the basement stairs. He was covered in dirt, a smear of it across his forehead like war paint. But he was standing straighter, and he was smiling. I hadn't seen my father smile with his whole face in years. "It's done," he said, and his voice was different. Clearer. Like a radio station that had finally come into focus. He looked solid. I just figured it was pride. A hard day's work. The next morning, the house smelled like coffee and fried eggs. Alaric was at the stove, whistling an old tune I hadn't heard since I was a kid. He never cooked. He never whistled. "Morning, Kai," he said, sliding a perfect omelet onto a plate. "Big day. Think I'll patch the roof after breakfast." I was stunned, but I was happy. Thrilled. In the week that followed, he was a force of nature. He didn't just patch the roof, he reshingled the whole damn thing. He tore out my mom's dead rose bushes and planted a new garden. He fixed the squeaking floorboard on the landing that had been driving me insane my whole life. He moved with the easy strength of a man half his age. It felt like he'd finally clawed his way out of the fog of grief. It felt like I had my dad back. The first thread came loose on a Thursday. I had plans to meet a friend for a drink. The first time in months I'd been out for anything other than work or groceries. I was pulling my boots on by the door when he walked into the hall. "You heading out?" he asked. The bright energy was gone from his voice. It was thin. "Yeah, just for a bit. Catching up with Evo." He slumped against the door frame, a hand pressed to his temple. "Ah, it's just this headache. Came out of nowhere. The whole room is spinning. Probably nothing, but, you know." I looked at him. His face was gray. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. "Should I call a doctor? Are you okay?" No, he said, a little too quickly. "Don't make a fuss. I don't want to be alone right now, if it gets worse." So I stayed. I called Ivo, made my excuses. We watched TV. The second I hung up the phone, his migraines seemed to lift. He asked me if I wanted popcorn. I was annoyed, sure, but what could I do? He's my dad. He's getting old. A few days later, it was a sudden, crippling back spasm that flared up the moment I picked up my car keys. Then it was a dizzy spell. Then a stomach bug. Each time, a perfectly timed ailment that would miraculously vanish as soon as my plans were canceled. It was so transparent, so fucking manipulative, we finally fought about it. "You can't keep doing this," I yelled, standing in the kitchen. "You're fine. You're healthier than you've been in a decade, but the second I try to leave, you're on your deathbed. I'm a prisoner here." His face just broke. It wasn't anger, it was a bottomless, soul-crushing sorrow. His eyes welled up. "I just need you here, Keon," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Is that so wrong?" It shut me up. It cut me to the bone. How do you argue with that? But in between the phantom illnesses, the new Alaric was still there. He was strong, unnaturally so. He'd haul 50-pound bags of soil from the car like they were nothing. I saw him move the solid oak sideboard in the dining room by himself, something that had taken 3 men the last time. It was the contradictions that were making my head spin. The vibrant, powerful man who fixed the house, and the frail, needy man who couldn't be left alone for an hour. The real fear began in the yard. He was turning the soil in the new garden, and I was on the porch steps. It was a bright, glaringly sunny afternoon. I looked at my own shadow, stretched out long and thin on the porch boards. I saw the shadow of the house, the fence, the newly repaired bird feeder. I looked at my father, stabbing the spade into the earth. He was a solid figure in the blinding light, but the grass around him was an unbroken sheet of green. He cast no shadow. I squeezed my eyes shut, then opened them again. Nothing. It had to be a trick of the light, an impossible angle. I tried to make it make sense. "Hey, Dad," I called out, my voice tight. "Can you help me with this?" I pointed at a heavy rain barrel on the other side of the yard in a patch of direct, unforgiving sun. He looked up, and his smile was a little strained. He shielded his eyes. "Sure thing, son. Soon as I finish this row." He never did. He worked until the house's shadow stretched far enough to swallow the garden, and then he came inside. After that, I watched him. I saw how he'd always sit in a chair away from the window, how he'd find a reason to get up if a sunbeam crept across the carpet toward him, how all his new energy was confined to the dawn, the dusk, and the long hours of the night. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes and hear him humming in the kitchen or sanding a piece of wood in the garage. He seemed to hate the sun, but thrive in the dark. The excuses to keep me here got more desperate. He claimed he lost the spare car key after I found out he'd been taking the distributor cap off my engine. Last week, I woke up and the front and back doors had new deadbolts on them. For security, he'd said cheerfully. He kept the only keys. I had to know. I knew the answer, whatever it was in that cellar. I waited until last night. I went to my room, turned off my light, and lay there, rigid, listening. I heard his footsteps, softer than they should be. My dad used to stomp like a rhino. These were quiet, measured. I heard him check the new deadbolt on the front door, then the back. I heard him walk down the hall and pause outside my room. I held my breath until my lungs burned. The footsteps moved on. His bedroom door clicked shut. I gave it 2 hours, my heart hammering against my ribs the whole time. Then, moving like a ghost, I slipped out of my room. The air in the house was cold and still. The door to the basement was at the end of the hall. I turned the knob. It felt ice cold. A wave of air hit me as I opened it. It smelled of damp earth, of rot, and something else. Something metallic and sweet, like old pennies. I used my phone's flashlight, the beam shaking as I went down the wooden steps. The main basement was just as it always was. Piles of junk, old furniture covered in sheets, but the smell was stronger here. I pointed my light toward the back, to the low stone archway of the root cellar. I saw his toolbox lying open nearby. I saw the new wooden frame he'd built for the cellar entrance, but my eyes locked onto the floor in front of it. The ground there was all packed earth, but a section of it, about the size of a man, was different. The dirt was loose, darker, freshly turned. My throat closed up. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet were rooted to the spot. I found an old trowel in a bucket. I knelt. The earth gave way easily. I dug, my breath coming in ragged sobs. The scrape of the trowel was the only sound besides the blood rushing in my ears. The sweet, metallic smell grew stronger, thicker. About a foot down, the trowel hit something that wasn't a rock. It was soft. I dropped the tool, scrambling back. My hands were shaking too hard to hold the phone steady. I forced myself to reach in, my fingers sinking into the cool, loose soil. I touched fabric, worn denim, the familiar feel of my father's old jeans. A horrible strangled noise came out of my mouth. With my bare hands, I clawed at the dirt. I uncovered a leg, a torso, and a faded plaid work shirt. And then the face. It was my dad, Alaric. His eyes were closed, a smudge of dirt on his cheek. His skin was gray and waxy in the phone light. There was a terrible dark wound on the side of his head, where blood and hair and dirt were all matted together. He must have fallen on the cellar steps, hit his head on the stone floor. It was an accident, a horrible, stupid accident. I just knelt there, staring at my father's real face, and I started to cry. He was gone. He'd been down here this whole time. For 6 weeks, I'd been living with. A floorboard creaked, not from upstairs, from the bottom of the staircase. I turned so fast, I almost fell. I swung the beam of my phone up. It was standing there, not 10 feet away. It hadn't been there a second ago. It was wearing my father's pajamas. It had my father's face, my father's tired eyes, my father's thinning gray hair. And it was smiling. Not a happy smile, a gentle, pitying one. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. I had a feeling you'd find him, it said. The voice was my father's, but cleaner, smoother. I'm sorry, Keon. I really am. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just stared, kneeling in the dirt next to my father's corpse. It looked down at the body, its expression one of profound sadness. It was so fast. The old stone steps. He slipped. His last thought. It was for you. He was so afraid of you being alone. So afraid of leaving you. It looked back at me, its eyes full of a strange, chilling warmth. A wish that strong, that pure, a love that powerful. In the moment of death, it can't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. It leaves a space, it calls out, and sometimes something answers. What are you? I whispered. The words felt like broken glass in my throat. It took a step closer, its bare feet making no sound on the concrete. I am the answer to his prayer. I'm the promise he couldn't keep. I'm a better father. I finished the cellar. I'm fixing the roof. I make you breakfast. I won't get old. I won't get weak. I won't ever, ever leave you. The logic of it was so insane, so twisted, that it broke something in my mind. You're not him, I sobbed. No, it said, and the pity in its voice was suffocating. I'm not. He was weak. He was dying. He was going to abandon you, one way or another. I won't. It knelt down in front of me, its face inches from mine. I could smell the damp earth on its breath. He loved you, and I am that love. That is all I am, and I will take care of you, forever. It let me come back upstairs. It walked behind me the whole way. It's out there now, in the living room. It turned on the TV, and it's watching some old black and white movie, just like you used to. It's waiting for me to come out. I know I can't get away. The new locks are on the doors. It's stronger than any man. It doesn't sleep. It will never leave. It will just be here, taking care of me. I can hear footsteps in the hall, quiet, patient. He's not calling my name. He started humming again. That old familiar tune. He's right outside my door.